everyone, and welcome to Franciscan Mission Services informational webinar about programs available for service in DC and overseas. I'm going to turn off my video in just a moment so that we can really focus on the content of the PowerPoint that I'm going to be sharing, but I at least wanted all of you to be able to see my face so that I could introduce myself. My name is Meghan Meros, and I'm the Associate Director at Franciscan Mission Service. I've been working here for about 2 years, accompanying volunteers serving in DC, as well as providing some support to our missioners overseas. And I'm really excited to present this webinar today because I'm really excited about our programs and what we have to offer. So with that, I'm going to turn off my video and delve into the PowerPoint, and then probably come back with video at the end so I can answer some questions. So, Franciscan Mission Service, what are we about? What can we maybe offer you that meets what you're looking for next year? Well, to start with, let's see if I can, there we go. To start with, we are a very mission-driven organization. Not just mission-driven in the sense that we do overseas mission, but mission-driven in that we have a really robust mission statement. We say that we are Franciscan followers of Christ. We are a Franciscan lay organization, and we care about supporting Catholic women and men who have a desire to serve and who have a desire to be in solidarity with marginalized communities, both here in the nation's capital and in places overseas. So our two big programs are the Lay Mission Program and DC Service Corps. Our Lay Mission Program is our longest running program. It's been around for over 25 years since our founding by Father Anselm Moons, a Franciscan friar, in 1990. We have served in that time in over 19 countries, and but currently we're serving in Guatemala, Jamaica, and Bolivia. Now you may ask, well, gosh, 19 countries and now 3 countries, what's going on? Well, in the past, we actually used to send missioners out individually to partner with Franciscans in different parts of the world. And we would basically say to the missioner, where would you like to go? And we would find a Franciscan partnership in that country. But then there came a time in our history when we realized that that model of mission didn't provide for the sense of community that we really thought our missioners needed for their 2 or more years overseas. So at this point in time, we've consolidated our work to focus on 3 countries. And that doesn't mean we won't go to other countries in the future, but this is where the Spirit has moved us for this time. Our other program is DC Service Corps. And as its name suggests, it's based here in where our headquarters are in Washington, DC. But under DC Service Corps, we have 2 avenues for service. We have what I often refer to as DC Service Corps Direct, where we have volunteers going out into the community to serve with a partner organization. Currently, we have 3 partner organizations, so others might eat, which supports people who are experiencing homelessness, or struggling with addiction, or who just have very, very limited economic resources. We also work at the Father McKenna Center, or have worked there. We don't have a volunteer there this year, but they are still a partner. And the Father McKenna Center works with people experiencing homelessness, particularly men. And then Don Bosco Cristo Rey High School is a school that serves predominantly students from families with limited economic resources. And usually these students who are college-bound are going to be first-generation college students. So those are some opportunities for serving through DC Service Corps Direct. But the other avenue for service within DC Service Corps is the Associate Program. The Associate Program is a great path for people who are recently out of college, between the ages of 21 and 35, and are looking to develop a skill set that will allow them to serve in a nonprofit setting. In our FMS office, we have a staff writer position, a graphic designer position, program associate, and development and operations associate position. And then in this coming program year, we're also going to be partnering with the U.S. Catholic Mission Association, which actually is in our same office building, just right around the corner from the FMS office. And they will be hosting an associate to learn about mission from a different perspective and provide support. And we may add a couple other partner sites or associates in the coming months. So in addition to our mission statement and our program offerings, we like to say at FMS that we are rooted in these 4 R's. We say that we are radical, relevant, relational, and that we are reconcilers. Now, radical is a word that has so many connotations. Sometimes people associate radical with, I don't know, the 60s, or people who are going out into the streets and protesting, often for very good causes. But there's a lot of images we associate with being radical at all ends of the political, spiritual, economic spectrum. But here at FMS, being radical is about caring for people who are the most vulnerable in our society. We say that we are radical because St. Francis, in whose footsteps we follow, was a pretty radical person, particularly in his time. By reaching out to people on the margins, by vowing to live a life of simplicity, by leaving behind his family's wealth and the secure future that his family status would have provided him, St. Francis entered into a very radical life. And we try to do the same within our programs and even in our office setting as we are supporting our programs. At FMS, we also strive to be relevant and to enter into ministries that are relevant. We don't do things just to do them or to keep ourselves busy. We serve so others might eat because there is a real need for support for low-income individuals in our city. We are in Bolivia, Jamaica, and Guatemala because there's important ministerial work taking place there. We, at the office, dedicate ourselves to supporting mission and providing high-quality graphic design and engaging in development work because all of this, we believe, contributes to making the church and our world a better place in really one day at a time, one small step at a time. We also really care about educating our volunteers and missioners to be compassionate servant leaders. This is another way that we try to stay relevant. I'll talk a little bit more about formation later on, and you'll learn about how we try to keep people really engaged in what's going on in our world and church today. At FMS, we are also relational. We say that we engage in what's called a ministry of presence, where the focus is not on what can be done to make a situation better, but starts with a place of being with people, caring for people, and then seeing what they might need and helping where it makes sense. But we don't go into countries or into partner organizations with a sense of this is how I'm going to fix things. We start with relationship. We also foster relationship within the intentional communities that our volunteers and missioners live in. And we also provide a ministry of hospitality at our volunteer house where we welcome outside guests. At FMS, we are also reconcilers. By the nature of the work that we do, the ministries that we engage in, by reaching out to people on the margins, we are reconciling some of the brokenness in our world. We also care about diversity at FMS. We care about diversity through our overseas mission work that is very culturally sensitive We try to equip every missioner with the skills needed to enter into a community as guest. And here in Washington, D.C., some of our ministries are also really directly engaged in helping bring people together in a city that is often divided by race, by class. So to kind of sum up this part of the presentation, I want to say that service at FMS, in addition to being rooted in the 4 R's, in addition to being based on our mission statement, we say that service is a meeting point between different parts of the Catholic Christian spectrum. Unfortunately, in our church, even as it is united as one body of Christ, it can also feel divided at times. People have different ways of praying. People have different views about where service should be done and how it should be done. And yet service itself, that desire to reach out to people who are struggling in different ways, who are being oppressed in different ways, this is a place where people who pray differently or see things a little bit differently, service is a place where people can meet. So this is another way to visualize our ministries. Nothing here, again, that really is quite different from what I've said already, but we do, you'll see on this slide that we list social media and our returned mission and short-term trips and hospitality as other ministries in which we are involved. I'm not going to say much more about it right now, but I would invite you to check out our social media and online presence if you haven't done so already, because it's a way that we try to connect with people that may never participate in our programs. So I want to say a little bit about the formation that we provide for our lay missioners and for DC Service Corps. As I mentioned before, we try to be relevant at FMS, and being relevant, part of that is making sure people are kind of up to date on what is going on in our church, what's going on in the world, and how to enter into ministry in healthy, life-giving ways. So for lay missioners, formation is a 3-month intensive process that begins at the very end of August. So if you're looking at the lay mission program this year, you would start formation at the end of this August after being accepted to our lay mission program. And during this formation time, you would be engaging in about 8 classes a week, a weekly afternoon of service, and then a couple of retreats and some what we call a collaborative formation gathering that brings together missioners in training from other programs. So this intensive process is intended to give missioners the skills that they need to really enter into a new community as guests and as a really healthy, stable missioner. Everyone is broken in their own way. We all have things that we can work on. We're not saying that a missioner needs to be perfect or have all the answers sorted out in their faith or even be completely fluent in a different language before they leave. But we want people to have the skills to meet the challenges that are they naturally come with adjusting to a new place. Now, formation for DC Service Corps takes the form of weekly leadership learning sessions. Now, in the fall, these sessions overlap with the lay missioners as much as possible so that everybody comes together for the same formation class. But then there's a point when the lay missioners end their 3-month formation and they move on and they go back to their families for Christmas and for Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then they head off to their overseas mission sites. And DC Service Corps stays in the volunteer house and finishes up their year of service. So there's a time in the year when formation is inter-program, and then a time when it really focuses on the needs of DC Service Corps specifically. Weekly leadership learning sessions really do cover a variety of topics. There's some things that have kind of become a tradition in DC Service Corps formation, such as managing up and the Myers-Briggs. But then there are also some formation sessions that are offered just to meet the needs of the group at any given time. And formation for DC Service Corps also includes 2 retreats a year and a fall day of reflection. So to kind of end this section on formation, I wanted to share this picture of Father Iggy. And so moving kind of right to left, we have Father Iggy, who is a Franciscan that returned just this year from 40 years serving in Bolivia. And then next to him is Jeff, who has served for 4 years in Bolivia himself and is now on our board. And we have Kitsy, who served for 3 years in Bolivia, and then Anne-Marie, who served for 4. And you'll see at the bottom this quote from Father Iggy, which is kind of a point of pride for us, because we see in this quote that others can see how well-formed our missioners are. Some programs, some really well-established and good programs, really emphasize formation in a different way. Formation may be a week, or it may be 3 weeks. And for some, that may be enough. But at Franciscan Mission Service, we've seen such success and such growth come out of a longer formation for our missioners and for DC Service Corps. And we're happy that our Franciscan partners can see that as well. So as I mentioned before, our ministries are based in a ministry of presence. Now this slide is a little bit more directed to lay mission. Because with DC Service Corps, one is going to be accepted into a particular role. A person may be the graphic designer at our headquarters, or maybe the corporate work study assistant at Don Bosco. And so usually with those specific job titles come specific responsibilities. But for a lay missioner going overseas, we try to provide an opportunity for a lay missioner to discern where they are called to serve at any given site, at any given country. Now, even where a missioner goes, what country they go to, is somewhat based off of a process of discernment. With only 3 countries, there's not a wide variety of discernment. We're not discerning a lot of options, but we do try to walk with missioners through formation as they figure out, like, where might they thrive? Where are they feeling called? Some people are surprised during the course of their formation. Some people start out thinking, well, I could never go to a country where Spanish is the main language, because I've never, I didn't do so well in high school Spanish. And then sometimes there's a change in a person. And then they realize, you know what, I think I would like to dedicate myself to learning Spanish, because I really feel called to serve in Guatemala at Valley of the Angels School, where we have our missioners serving. So there's that initial country discernment, but then there's also a discernment about ministry. But regardless of where a missioner discerns that they are being called to serve at a given site, every ministry kind of falls under this umbrella of ministry of presence. Whether a missioner is teaching English, whether they are working in prison ministry, whether they are helping women in Bolivia with gardening, all of those activities are grounded in presence as an important starting point. This would probably be a great point for me to also say a little bit about what mission looks like at each of our countries. So currently in Bolivia, our missioners are serving in Cochabamba, which is a city. And in being a city, there are a variety of organizations that are trying to meet the needs of people in the city. There are organizations that our missioners have worked with that try to meet the needs of girls who have experienced sexual abuse. organizations working with women getting out of prison, organizations helping rural Indigenous Bolivians get access to healthcare in the city. So Cochabamba provides a lot of opportunities, a lot of room for a missioner to discern where they would like to serve. In Guatemala, it's a bit of a different situation because our missioners are based at Valley of the Angels School, which is a school established by Franciscans. It's really elementary school through high school. Elementary school is co-ed, high school is just for girls. And it's a school that serves kids from families that are very poor around Guatemala City. And it's actually a residential school, so kids go home or go to extended family during breaks, but otherwise they're living at the school. So there are different opportunities for ministry at Valley, but ministries all take place at Valley with a few exceptions to go out into the local community. In Jamaica, our missioners are based in Kingston, and they share a living space with some Franciscan sisters. And then ministries are often based at the schools that the Franciscan sisters run, but there are, again, being in a city, there are opportunities to explore ministry at other sites. So this slide is also really directed at people interested in lay mission. We found early on in our history, I'm not even quite sure when our reentry retreat started. It may have been, right from the first returning class. But we found that a missionary coming back from 2 or more years overseas really needs a time to process everything that has taken place on mission. And so we provide a 2.5-week reentry retreat here in DC. So a missioner usually comes back to the States in early to mid-December, spends Christmas with their families or friends or doing whatever they want to do. And then a month to 6 weeks after a missionary gets back from being overseas and spending Christmas with their families, they come to DC for this reentry retreat. And it's a time of, as it says here, honoring the experience of mission, processing grief, saying goodbye, and really looking toward what is next. And I think I'm going to go ahead and share this here. I'll be honest. So many missioners do not want to come to this retreat. They think that they don't need it. They think that they know how to process everything on their own. But almost invariably, every year, our missioners are very grateful at the end of the retreat because it ends up being a really fruitful time in ways they didn't even expect. So this slide also pertains to lay mission, but it also in a sense pertains to DC Service Corps. Some domestic US-based programs require fundraising of their volunteers. We do not require that of DC Service Corps. However, we do ask everyone from staff and associates to DC Service Corps direct volunteers to help us keep our missions going by raising awareness about what we do, by inviting family and friends into our fundraising campaigns. And so even though there's not a set requirement for fundraising for DC-based volunteers, everyone is asked to participate. There is a fundraising goal, support raising goal that is set for our lay missioners. And if you are interested in learning more about that, you can certainly talk with me or ask questions at the end of the webinar or email our programs manager, Emily Norton. But I present this slide just as a way of sharing that even though we're doing mission work in places where people have limited economic resources, we as an organization still have expenses that go into lay mission. And so we encourage our missioners from day one to not see support raising as a burden, but as an opportunity to invite people into mission. We say here at FMS that some people go on mission by giving, by supporting financially a missioner, and some give by going. So to wrap things up, I just want to say a couple brief things about some other opportunities with FMS to connect with our mission. So short-term mission and global awareness trips are offered occasionally, either at the request of a university group or a church group, or as we have this May, we're organizing a trip for individuals to sign up for. If you're interested in this, I'd encourage you to go to our website and look at the options that exist for this year. We have one trip to Bolivia for secular Franciscans, and we have one trip to Bolivia for individuals. And we may be offering additional trips later this year or sometime next year. This is a great way, if you're not sure that long-term mission is for you, or you're really trying to decide between a job and a year of service, if you'd like to get a taste of what it's like to be in one of our mission countries, this is a good way to do it. As I mentioned before, we also have a really strong social media presence. Currently, we are, we've just started our Lenten blog series that's called Seeing Clearly, which is focused on what really we see as a piece of Lent, which is beginning to see ourselves with more clarity, seeing ourselves as God sees us, and seeing the world as God sees the world. So we'd encourage you to check that out, especially during this Lenten season. And then another ministry that I mentioned before is that of hospitality. We have space at our volunteer house here in DC for guests to stay with us. And so if you are considering a visit to the DC area and would like a place to stay, check in with us, and we may have a room available to rent for just a small contribution to our organization. And for those of you that are on the fence, this again could be a really good way to connect with us and see what it's like to live in our community and to be part of the FMS family. Speaking of the FMS family, we are not a family in isolation. We are in partnership with other Franciscan organizations. Some of those include the Franciscan Service Network, which represents other Franciscan-based service programs, the Franciscan Action Network, which is located very close to our office in DC, and they focus on advocacy, especially on the Hill. And then we also partner with the Secular Franciscan Order. It's one of the reasons that we're offering a short-term trip for them this year, is because so far they haven't had an opportunity just for them to connect with our mission, although they have supported us for a number of years. This slide I'll probably save for another time. If you want to know more about the complexities of the professed religious Franciscan family, I would encourage you to do some Googling. There's even a great YouTube video called "Why Are There So Many Franciscans?" We do not fall under any one part of the Franciscan family tree. This is something that's really unique about our organization. We are a lay organization, and we are connected to all branches of the Franciscan family tree. Now, all of those branches that are mentioned on this slide. So when you become a part of the FMS family, you become part of this broader Franciscan family as well. And with that connection, we really believe that we are not an island as an organization. We contribute to the broader Catholic Church. We contribute to making this world a little bit better, a little bit lighter, a little bit more Franciscan. And that brings us to the end of our PowerPoint. I think at this point in time, let's see how many participants we have. Okay, so Rose is our programs associate for this year, serving in DC Service Corps. And just last year, Rose was discerning whether she would join one of our programs. And at that time, she was actually serving in a different program in the Dominican Republic. And so I wanted to invite Rose to share just a little bit about some of the questions that she had as she was looking at programs and trying to decide what her next step would be after a year overseas. Are you there, Rose?
Yes. Hi, Megan.
Hi.
Let me turn on my video. Can you see my video now?
I can see your video.
Great. Hi, everyone. Like Megan said, my name is Rose, and I'm currently the Programs Associate with Franciscan Mission Services DC Service Corps. From there, Megan, do you have any questions for me to ask, or just talk about my discernment, like you said?
Yeah, I think a question that I have, and I think we've talked about this maybe a little bit. Maybe I'll turn on my video too here.
Great.
Yeah. Okay. So, I helped with your interview process. And so, months ago, we talked about your discernment, but it actually wasn't until a little bit later in the year that we talked. So I'd like you to maybe think back to this time last year, like mid-February in the Dominican Republic. What were some of the questions that were starting to surface about your future and doing more service?
Yeah, so first of all, going back a little bit farther before that, I had worked on an application for Franciscan Mission Service during my senior year of college when I was trying to discern whether I wanted to do international mission work or do domestic service programs, that sort of thing. And I did almost the whole application for FMS's DC Service Corps, and then realized, no, I want to do international mission. So I went to the Dominican Republic. And part of why I was there was because that program in particular was a teaching program. And I was trying to discern whether I wanted to pursue an advanced degree in education. During my ministry there, though, I realized I did not want to focus on education right now. Which really left me wide open when coming back to the U.S. I didn't exactly know where I wanted to go. I had studied theology and American studies, and I knew I didn't want to be teaching. I still wanted to be working in some sort of faith-based capacity if possible. And even though I didn't feel particularly called to the ministry at my mission site, I still felt really passionate about mission. So all of those things I thought would help me find a job really well. And coming back, so I wasn't even particularly looking for service. I was looking for some sort of professional position. But what drew me to DC Service Corps eventually, it had always been on my radar since I first learned about it during my senior year. But then what drew me back was the opportunity to get professional development training, to be working to support mission and support missioners more specifically, but not actually be on mission myself. All of those things really drew me to this, both the program that I'm doing, DC Service Corps, and how FMS supports its volunteers, like communal living and spiritual direction, professional development sessions once a week. All of those things really drew my attention. The opportunity to work for a nonprofit and be in DC. But then even the features of FMS's international mission programs really attracted me as well, in terms of how much support they give to their missioners, because sometimes going on mission, you always at times feel lonely or unsupported, and that definitely happened to me while I was away. So I knew that giving that support to missioners was really important to me, and working for an organization that cared about that was really important to me too.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
It's just this morning I was reading a great article in which one of our former volunteers, Maria Beeben, and one of our former missioners was quoted. It was an article in National Catholic Reporter that's now posted on our Facebook page. And it's, I think it's titled, questions to ask yourself or things to consider before committing to a year of service. I'm wondering if, as a current volunteer, you I know you haven't read the article, but what would you say are some of the maybe top 3 things to consider? Not just trying to decide overseas or DC, but really like, should I do service or should I go into a job? Should I quit my job? Like, you know, why, like in saying why service? What were some of the things that you asked yourself?
Yeah, I think one question that sort of encompasses a lot of the questions, I think, is, are you willing to be radical for at least a short period of time? In terms of, are you living or willing to live for your faith and have most everything that you're doing hinge upon your faith? Like living in community and working without receiving pay, perhaps, and doing ministry work that's sometimes grueling and, you know, challenging in its various aspects. All of why we do this is because we believe that it's a calling. So if you're willing to live in that radical way, I think that's a very good question that I asked myself. Another question, openness to living in community, I think is really important, because it does require some sacrifices in some ways of just not always having what you want for dinner, or not always being able to do your laundry when you want to, things that if you're living alone just wouldn't happen. But there are so many fruits to it as well, with supporting each other and praying together, sharing life together, that is a really significant part of doing mission work or service work, whatever you're doing. That's a key aspect. And then I think finally would just be asking yourself the question of where you truly believe God is calling you, because it's not just a decision to do service or mission, it's a discernment. Trying to decipher where you feel called to serve, because maybe that's by doing a year or 2 years or however many years of specific service, or maybe it's by doing something else or involving yourself in your community more. There are many ways to serve, and this is a commitment, but asking yourself where God is calling you and how God is calling you to serve in your life is another great question.
Those are excellent. That's definitely given me food for thought as well. And if any of you who are watching this webinar, either as a recording or may have come on live, would like to look at some more questions to ask yourself, I would encourage you to check out that National Catholic Reporter article. It's very well written and it's a good resource. So I'm trying to think, we may have covered just about all of it, Rose, except for maybe what next steps would be. As throughout this webinar, I mean, now you've met Rose, you've met me. An important person that's not on this webinar is our programs manager, Emily Norton. And Emily is the person that if you're interested in overseas lay mission, is going to be the one who walks with you most closely through the application process. Rose helps with it and supports it, and you would be in touch with Rose as well. But if you have some deeper questions about lay mission that were not covered in this webinar, I would encourage you to reach out to Emily or reach out to Rose or me, and we can get you in contact with Emily. But Emily's email address is emily@franciscanmissionservice.org. All Franciscan Mission Service, all one word. So those of you that may be interested in DC Service Corps, you would be primarily in touch with me. But again, maybe going through Rose. If you just want some more general information, Rose is going to be your person. She will make sure that you see our materials and can connect you with some important web resources. But when it comes time to apply, and our application is on our website, you would be submitting that application to me. And instructions are also on our website. But we think as you go through this process, it's helpful to know like who is the person who's on the other end of this email address. So now Rose, our priority application deadline for lay mission, it's April 1st.
Yep.
Yeah. That said, we understand that, you may still be sorting some things out with your, whatever your next step is, whether you're in college or you're working right now, or maybe even looking toward retirement. So, we have a certain number of spots at our overseas mission sites. And while our priority application deadline is April 1st, if you think you are interested and might need to get that application in a little bit later, you can talk with us about that. DC Service Corps, we're accepting applications really on a rolling basis until we have our spots filled. We encourage people to start the process early, not just because we enjoy having those applications in hand and getting those interviews going, but because it gives you more time to figure out whether this is the right fit for you for next year. Just because you start the application doesn't mean that you are signing on the dotted line and that you have committed to a year. Of course, we love it when people submit applications and they're like, yes, DC Service Corps is my program, but you may not be there yet. So that's okay. I think with that, I'll probably end this webinar, but we, again, encourage you to reach out to us with additional questions, visit our website, and most importantly, start that application process if you are feeling drawn to this. Anything else you'd like to say, Rose?
No, good luck with your discernment.
Yes, indeed. All right, peace and all good, everyone. That is a Franciscan closing blessing. We hope you have a wonderful day.